Hello and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Edge. My name is Donde, and in today's episode we're coming to you from Truth Coffee Cult in Beterkant Street from the city of Cape Town. If you happen to be a coffee lover, you've probably heard of Truth Coffee. They were one of the very first artisanal coffee roasting brands in South Africa. And on today's episode, we're speaking to the founder, David Donde. David, tell me about how you started Truth.
Truth was a process. I started roasting coffee around about 2003, and through various brands, various businesses, I got to a point where I wanted a business that expressed what was great in coffee in a simpler way as possible, and was about enjoying the coffee as opposed to how clever we are. And the name Truth was meant to be a distillation of that which was good in coffee.
And you've got quite a background in catering and hospitality. Tell me a bit about that.
Started, while still at school, working as a waiter and managed various restaurants through university. Ended up with a farm stall and an egg farm and later a hotel. And it was actually the hotel that was out of Cape Town that got me into coffee in a serious way. I was involved in coffee before that, but it was at a different level, and I knew from what I'd learned about coffee that I needed the coffee to be fresh. And what happened with the hotel, it was out in Greyton and nobody would deliver coffee once a week to me. So we started roasting coffee, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Can I ask you about the coffee culture in South Africa? Because this is something which has developed very fast over the last 20 years or so. South Africa has never been a true coffee drinking nation as such.
I don't know that your statement's entirely true. I think it's gone in waves. I think, Great Trek time, I think there was a coffee culture. I don't know if it was cross-cultural, but, it was there. But when we talk about modern coffee culture, I don't think there has been one. And I see coffee as going in stages. Let's meet for coffee, stage one. I need a coffee, let's meet, to I need a coffee now, to I'm late for work, where am I going to stop for a cup of coffee? And we still at that second stage, which is between the let's meet for coffee and I want a cup of coffee, where can I go? And I think the artisanal coffee has helped it. Certainly businesses like Seattle, like Vida, like Wimpy even, have taken South Africans' awareness that there is something better. Of course, we're not in that arena at all. We're at a different level with the artisanal coffee, and seeing how far we can push this thing. Where's the envelope? How great can a cup of coffee truly be?
Let's talk about that artisanal movement, because this is something which has really captured the attention of consumers, not just in South Africa, but all over the world. And it's not just coffee, it's beer, it's chocolate, it's bread. What is it about artisanal products that has inspired consumers and captured the attention of the zeitgeist?
I think what's happened is food starting to split, and we've got food into the eating to live category, which is your GMO produce and producing things at the absolute lowest cost. It's that side of things. Then you've got the other side, which is I've got cash, I like the finer things in life. Where can this go? And for me, the first experience of that was in artisanal cheese. The first time I ever tasted an unpasteurized French brie, and I realized that I'd never eaten brie before. Unfortunately for me, I could never eat an inferior brie again in my life because the standard had been set. And I think the artisanal world is doing that for beer, for coffee, for all these things that you mentioned. You've got a cup and it's okay, and then you've got an artisanal cup. And for me, it's about getting the coffee in the cup to deliver on the promise made by the aroma of freshly ground coffee. That's been my entire career. How close can we get? The difference between a good and a bad cup of coffee, it's easy. It's that initial flavor, yeah, sure, it's coffee, but it's the next stage. It's, do I need to add 5 teaspoons of sugar to swallow this? Or can I really enjoy it and get into the secondary flavors, the complexity? And then you've got the difference between a great cup of coffee and a nice cup of coffee, which is a long, lingering and pleasant aftertaste. And only the artisanal world with deeper understanding and more attention to detail can bring you that.
Now, there's absolutely no question about the quality in artisanal products, but what about the price premium? Do you think it's justified?
Okay, well, here's an interesting question. So if you're going to go and buy a great artisanal cup of coffee and make it at home, it's probably going to cost you somewhere between 4 and 5 rand a cup. Pretty expensive, right? So if most people are drinking water at 12 rand a bottle, is it really expensive to have coffee that's at 160 pairs of hands, touching those beans in the process from seed to cup, to water that seriously just got put in a bottle? The price point between, but just to analyze it inside the category, the price differential between a great cup of coffee and a cheap cup of coffee, probably a factor of 2. I mean, yes, there are some outliers that are further, but you could probably buy a really cheap coffee for half the price of a really good artisanal coffee across the board. Look at other produce. The differential is far higher than that. Wine, 20, 30 rand a glass for cheap wine, red wine, 700, 800, 4,000 rand for great. I think the differential is small.
You refer to Truth as a coffee cult.
Yes.
What is it about coffee that inspires this emotional attachment that drinkers have with their cup?
I think coffee and coffee brands are incredibly polarizing. And I don't know that that's exactly good or right. You know, if you speak to the great wine producers, they would be horrified to hear that somebody only drinks their wine. They'd want to hear that their wine was in their top 5 or 6 favorite wines. And I think coffee should be the same way. One should have coffees that one's passionate about. But I think you're right, and you were talking about the zeitgeist earlier. The zeitgeist is, that's my coffee brand. And hey, I'm fortunate as an entrepreneur, I'm going to grab that tiger's tail and hang on to it for dear life. So,
and you've done that with some success because you've recently won an award.
Well, yeah, a UK travel blog, MSN Travel, declared us the world's best coffee shop. So, hey, another tiger's tail. Another tiger's tail.
You'll take
yes.
it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about entrepreneurship lessons, because you are a successful entrepreneur. Your previous coffee shop, Origin, is a successful brand which is also still operating. Catering and hospitality, and especially coffee shops and restaurants, are not an easy entrepreneurship venture, especially for the inexperienced. I believe there's a statistic, something like 80% of new coffee shops and restaurants fail and close up within their first year of operation. What is it so difficult about hospitality?
I think hospitality has so many different facets. I think any business, I mean, you talk about the failure rate of businesses, they say 10% will make it through their first year, and 10% of those their second year. You've got that side of it, you've got the great product, but then you've got another layer, which is service at a different level. Things like wastage and fraud, which it's just, everything's more perishable. Everything's a little bit more difficult, and it requires that element of experience. More than that, I think, you know, normally when you look at ventures, you look at the risk-reward side of things. Although the risk goes up in the hospitality industry, the reward doesn't necessarily do it, yet it's so seductive. Everyone wants a successful hospitality business because of, I guess, the exposure of it all.
There's so many different coffee shops in Cape Town. What sets Truth apart?
I think what sets us apart, our look and feel, the whole steampunk feel, but Truth isn't about...
steampunk?
Steampunk is what they call Victorian futurism. Imagining the world from the Victorians' point of view, or as somebody else put it, steampunk's what happened when Goths discovered the color brown. But either way, we're going to own it. But we're not a cafe and we're not a steampunk business. We are truly a coffee roastery. And what sets us apart, our real USP, is the flavor of our coffee. We focus on flavor, not bitterness, no sugar required. We are a learning industry. We are different in that a lot of our decisions are based on our philosophy, not based on a random opportunity and path. And although our philosophy does evolve, the business is very clearly based on sets of principles And being a learning organization, we never think we know how to do anything. There's always a better way. And all we know is the best way for now. And that leads to a process of continuous improvement.
Tell me about your biggest entrepreneurship lesson that you have learned over the years, at this business or perhaps at one of your previous ones.
I think the lesson that we all learn, and we're all constantly learning and we never quite get right, is it's always about people. And we're only as good as our people, and that is a huge lesson. But
the
for me,
customers or your staff?
No, staff. The customers will follow the right staff, I truly believe. I don't think one can set a business for profits or set a business for customers. I think one has to have a set of principles and work towards it. But the other huge lesson for me, and in fact my career, has been taking commodities and turning them into brands. First that was eggs, and secondly that was coffee. Because South African coffee roasteries, before I got started, really were a commodity producer.
I want to touch on something that you mentioned, which is surrounding yourself with the right staff and the right people. They say that a good entrepreneur, a good leader, employs people that are better than him, so that they can take over the business at some stage. Do you subscribe to that?
I think one has to. One needs to decide early on if you're creating a job or you're creating a business. I think if one is creating a business, it is about having skilled people. The entrepreneurial fallacy always is, hey, I can do everything best. And yes, in its individual capacity, you probably can. But when you've got 20 or 30 or 100 or 200 tasks a day, it's hopeless. Somebody who's got the resources to do it is always going to do a better job than some entrepreneur who just believes they would do it best. And I think at some point every entrepreneur has to take that leap of faith into going, yes, everyone else can do most things better than me.
What's your biggest challenge as you stand?
Finding and managing to motivate the best people, and we're getting there. Customer acquisition was our biggest challenge in the past. That before you're a recognized brand, period. But I think we've overcome that obstacle, and our telephone's ringing, so we're a very happy brand right now.
What's in the future of Truth Coffee?
For us, it's really a process of being served in the best hotels and restaurants through South Africa. That's our goal. At the end of the day, we're a wholesale coffee business. The store itself is about exposing people to the quality of our coffee, and it's really about being continued to be acknowledged as the leader in service and quality of coffee and training for coffee in South Africa, and we're just helping make coffee better for everyone.
That was David Donde, and this was the Entrepreneurial Edge. Thank you for watching, and see you again next week.